Welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Today I'm going to be sharing a birth story from another doula. Her name is Amelia Mattocks.
I'm a full spectrum doula in Greensboro, North Carolina. I've been working here full-time as a doula for the past 2 years.
It was really refreshing to meet Amelia on Zoom because she's kind of from where I'm from, and there really aren't doulas around here. Her birth story that we're going to focus on was a surprise breech vaginal birth, which I have never known anyone to have a breech vaginal birth or anything like that. I feel like around here especially it's unheard of, so it was really cool to hear this story and just the variations of normal throughout all of her births, because all of them were so different. Her other two children's birth stories we do talk about. Her first child was an easygoing hospital birth.
I can't believe it. It's been almost 10 years since my first baby was born, and he was born at the hospital.
Her second child was a planned home birth. Amelia had transferred to the hospital at some point and had to have vacuum assistance vaginal delivery.
My second baby is almost 8, and he was also born at the hospital, but we had a planned home birth.
Her third, she really wanted this home birth. There were so many surprises.
And my third baby was born at home with a planned home birth, and that was 5 years ago this past Wednesday. You know, I'd already had 2 babies. I was pretty familiar with pregnancy and had already done my doula training. I had a lot of really good information, you know, already in my hands when I got pregnant the third time. It was a fantastic pregnancy. It was probably my best, you know, like I felt the best during that pregnancy, but also it's the only pregnancy that I threw up. Just had a lot of energy during the pregnancy, was able to maintain running like up until about like 6 months pregnant. Had these 2 other children, and you know, I was busy. I was working full time, and I mean, literally working up till before she was born because, you know, I had the energy to do so. I was, you know, planning events and doing all kinds of stuff. We were planning at the time, we were, you know, planning for home birth. We just wanted things to be as simple as possible, as few interventions as possible. I had 1 ultrasound that entire pregnancy, the fewest of all 3 pregnancies. And this one, we were just like, everything's fine. And everything was fine. You know, we just had it. We knew that for the most part, that you know, the baby was healthy and that we were going to have the baby whenever the baby came. We were also expecting the baby to be born sometime after 40 weeks. That was our thinking. We want to let the baby come when the baby's ready. You know, you're so pregnant and you really want the baby born. You know, you're kind of willing to do some things, you know, natural measures to try to, you know, lots of walking. And one thing I did do differently in my third pregnancy is that we decided to employ a different method of childbirth comfort measures. I did the online Hypnobabies childbirth education, and with my third, I had not done that with the other 2, and I was really glad that I did, because I know that it made a big, I wish you know, like, I still wish I had done it, you know, with my first or in my second, you know, had that tool in my toolbox, but I did with my third, and it made a big difference. With my third, you know, it was very easy. Even into the third trimester, I just felt really good. I did have, you know, Braxton Hicks type contractions, not like I did with the other 2, though. It really wasn't it didn't feel as extreme. Where I was like 32 weeks or so not, you know, not ready to have a baby. I was having what felt to me like those regular contractions, and I called my midwife, and she said, you know, just, you might be dehydrated, you might be, you know, stressed out or overly tired. Just try to relax, put your feet up, take a bath, whatever. And that's exactly what I did, and they just went away. But like, I spent several hours, I remember that evening, like thinking, oh my God, I really hope this baby isn't coming early. And we really wanted to have a home birth, because our second baby was a planned home birth that was a hospital transfer. And that was something I had to really process too. That experience of having, you know, traumatic experience of having to transfer under, you know, duress. I had gotten into the birth tub, so I was pretty far along. I mean, like approaching, you know, 10 centimeters. I was feeling the urge to push while I was in the water. And however, my midwife asked me to get out and said, the baby is not responding well to the contractions. And because every time, so she's monitoring the baby's heart rate, and it just wasn't quite, they call it decels, but it just wasn't quite coming back up to where it needed to, and stopping for too long during a contraction. So she wanted to see if getting out of the water and maybe getting me in a different position would help with this issue. So I was able to get on the bed and we tried all kinds of positions. And at this point I was like fully pushing. And and this was my second, the baby wasn't responding to the pushes, or, and was not descending, and was still in distress. Mm-hmm. I was starting to also, hyperventilate, I needed oxygen. And so my midwife was able to put me on some oxygen, and then we called the paramedics, and they came and got me on a more, even flow. They got me on a mask, and because the baby was not descending through the birth canal, we needed to go to the hospital because of the distress. And that was the reason. And I think I stayed on the oxygen until he was born. And when we got to the hospital, we actually were received very beautifully. The doctor on call was very encouraging. And I had my whole support team with me. My midwife and my doula and my partner and my sister all came. They were all able to be there with me at the hospital for that birth. And it was a beautiful birth. It was very hard. And we ended up with after 3 hours of pushing and no progress, we did a vacuum assist, which is it is just an assist. This is what people don't realize, you still have to push, you still have to kind of do the work involved to get a baby out. It is just an assist, and it is not easy. But we were obviously trying to avoid a C-section. So really glad that we had a good team. He was coming out like with his forehead, this part of his forehead was coming out that way. So his head was kind of tilted. So I spent some time like talking to my doula and my midwife about those fears of having attempting another home birth. Really felt like my support people were exactly what they were supposed to be. They were very supportive and encouraging, and saying that, look, every birth is different. I was 39 weeks in a few days. I had gone to work that day, and I knew that I was something was feeling different, but I was like, I'm not even 40 weeks yet. There's no way that this is labor. I'm probably just tired. I was like chugging water all day because I'm dehydrated. It was warm that day. It was March, but it was actually fairly warm. And I remember I wore sandals that day. I had gone to a party. There was a bunch of people. I was working at UNCG, and there were a bunch of people in our department who were all pregnant at the same time. And I was the first. I had the first due date. And so they had given us a party that day. And I remember I ate this humongous cupcake. I thought I had indigestion. I was like, oh, that cupcake did not sit well with me. I don't know. I did a bunch of other things that day. I picked up the kids. I came home. I did some sewing. I made dinner. I was having regular contractions. They were very far apart, but it really didn't click in my head that they were like, this was going to be it. I thought for sure once I went to bed that things would go away. I ended up staying up pretty late that night, and told my husband, I said, you know what? I don't know if these contractions will go away. They were still only like 10, 15 minutes apart. And I said, let's get the baby clothes out just in case. Midnight, I went to bed, and we had left all those clothes out in the living room. We didn't have anything ready. We didn't have the birth tub blown up. About 2:00 in the morning, I got up, and before I went to bed, I had warned my midwife. I did send her a text to say, just FYI, I'm having contractions about 10 to 15 minutes apart, but I'm going to go to bed. She said, sounds good, but this probably isn't going to go away. Got up about 2. I really needed to go to the bathroom, and I got up, and I was in full-blown labor. I got up, and I like immediately was having contractions pretty close together. And they were very manageable, and I was doing when I went to bed, I'd put on a Hypnobabies meditation track. So I was already very relaxed. And so I was using that energy that I already had. I was super relaxed. I was managing the contractions really well, but they were fairly close together, like 2-3 minutes apart. My water hadn't broken yet. I guess it took maybe 30-45 minutes for my doula to get there. And then my midwife got to the house about 3:00 in the morning. And the other 2 children were asleep. And so it was just us, my doula, midwife, and midwife's assistant. And that was it. And they were all getting things set up. I was just kind of wandering around the house, just trying to be quiet because the kids were still asleep. And I was convinced, of course, that I would be in labor for a long time. Yeah. With my first, I was in labor for 37 hours total, from what felt like active labor to me till the time he was born. And then with my second, also, close to 24 hours of labor with him. And then, so I was like, this is a day. I will be in labor for at least a day, because I was with the other 2. And I didn't even give my parents a heads up until around 4, when my midwife said, "Are you ready? Do you want to do a cervical check?" And I said, yeah, let's do that, because it might give us an idea of when to call my parents, because they were supposed to come and take the children. Mm-hmm. If they needed to go somewhere, then my parents were going to come and they were 2 hours away. So, if we knew about how far along I was, we'd be like, okay, yeah, we'll know when to call them. Well, I was about 9 centimeters when she checked me at around 4:00. And my midwife said, there's still quite a bit of space. Like, she could feel the bag of waters, but the baby was not in a good station yet, was not quite low enough. She said, your cervix is just about all the way gone. We just need to get the baby in a better position. And at this point, my husband had the tub ready for me. I was ready to I wanted to have that water birth that I hadn't had with the other one. And I got up, and she suggested doing some squats during contractions, which was not great. And she said, let's try 10 contractions like that. And they were coming, obviously contractions were coming very close. And we didn't make it 10 contractions, where I said, no, I need to get in the water. I'm starting to feel the urge to push. It's like walking towards the tub. And then I was like, no, I need to push now. And I was standing, I was holding on to the midwife's assistant. My husband was behind me, kind of propping me up under my elbows. And I had to bear down, like I just couldn't help it. And my midwife was on the floor looking up, with a flashlight to just see what was happening. And I remember saying, you better put some towels under me, because I think my water's going to break. And sure enough, and she did. There were towels right there. She grabbed them, put them under me. And on the next contraction, my water broke. And that was at 4:30 in the morning. And I noticed there was a lot of meconium in the water. I was like, that's surprising. First of all, because the baby was before 40 weeks. And I was nervous. So then I was like, I better get this baby out, swallow that meconium. My midwife said, okay, I see the head. And then the next thing she said on the next contraction was something like, and there's the feet. And I could look down and see this. And I was like, oh my God. In my head, I was like, got to get the baby out, got to get the baby out. Midwife asked me to, hang on, just stop. She helped guide the baby's head out on the next little push. Mm-hmm. And then she was out. They're palpating the belly when you're pregnant. And they have all this training to know what position your baby is in. And so my baby had flipped in those few days. Labor started, and this is what happens, right? And so I'm very grateful I had a midwife who knew exactly what to do in that situation. If we had had any time at all, we would have probably gone to the hospital if we had known before pushing had started. But this baby was not coming slowly, and she was born at 4:36. It was a moment, I remember when I was like doing those squats or whatever, where I was like, something didn't feel right. But I also felt that way with my other one, not the first one, but the one before that. I knew something was not right with him either, because I knew what it felt like to feel a baby actually descend. Because even when you have an epidural, you still feel that. And so I knew what that was supposed to feel like. With my third, it happened so incredibly fast. I don't even think that I could have known if it felt different or not. It felt painful. And obviously with a breech, when the head is the last thing to emerge, it does have to have assistance, an obstetrician, a doctor, or a midwife who knows what to do so that the baby is not injured during the birth. She did come out easily without injury. We felt really good about that. And she was just, like we said, her APGAR, which, those are the little scores that they do when babies are born on, are their eyes open? Are they crying? What they're doing with their limbs, things like that. And her APGAR scores were quite high. So she was, healthy breech baby. I think a lot of people who give birth probably feel this initially, which is, you have this like rush of energy, relief, and all those loving hormones that are running through all that oxytocin. You feel really good, and almost a sense of like you're like vibrating with energy. It's so exciting. I always thought we would only have 2 children, and then when we made the decision that we wanted to have a third, it felt like, wow, we really want this baby. And so she was just like so wanted, and so we were just so excited when she was born. And I don't even remember feeling any pain or anything. It's such a great feeling. My midwife had me lay down. It took us a while to get the placenta born. It may have just been because I was sitting and laying down. Didn't have gravity to help it out. It's breech, so you don't get some of the natural stretching that happens during birth on the perineum. Did have to have a repair from that birth, but it wasn't, I don't know, second degree, like pretty typical. But what's nice about a home birth, you get to do all that at home. You don't have to go anywhere. And I was able to hold her for hours and hours. I don't really believe in luck, but I feel like just very fortunate that I had so many supportive people with me, and I had really just picked the right team. So when she was born, we noticed that she had Down syndrome. And I don't think that I could have, been as, relaxed about all of it without the support people that I had with me. It was just a very matter of fact, and we weren't surprised. We were like, okay, this baby has Down syndrome. It didn't seem like some kind of, it certainly wasn't a tragedy. It certainly wasn't treated that way by our support team. We were just so excited that she was here. Midwife was so, reassuring. She said, this is what I'm seeing on my, they do a newborn exam just like they do at a hospital. And she said, this is what I'm seeing on my exam. And also, we might need to go to the hospital. And so we did. About 8 hours after she was born, I got all packed up, literally. Like I had my ice pack on, got everything, got the baby's stuff, and we already had a car seat. We were ready to go, and we just got in the car and took her to a pediatric emergency room, and where there was a neonatologist that could look at her. We were there 2 hours. She was born very healthy, and she even was able to drink a little colostrum off of a spoon while we were at the hospital, just so we could get her blood sugar up. All babies are born, right, with a little bit of a low blood sugar. And just colostrum, whatever's coming out of your breast when the baby's born, is usually enough. But my baby, because she had Down syndrome, was so sleepy and would not wake up to nurse while we were at the hospital. And then we could just put it in her mouth and she swallowed it right away and her blood sugar was perfect. And then we left. My best advice, and I tell this to my clients, I tell my friends this, my best advice for folks is to do what is going to work best for you and your family. That arm yourself with lots of information, and then it's a lot easier to make decisions when it's time to make a decision. And that you know your family best. You're the expert. You know your body best. You know your baby the best. And that when you have that information, it's so much easier to make decisions that make sense for you, and to surround yourself with support people that truly support those decisions and don't question you and the decisions that you make, that hold that space with you. That really resonates, especially with my first birth, where I had a lot of information. Had been trained as a doula. I had seen babies being born. I had so much. I'd gone to childbirth education class. I'd done Lamaze. I'd practiced all the things. I'd done the yoga, all of it. I thought for sure I was going to have a unmedicated birth. And I had planned a hospital birth. And, after 24 hours of labor, my decision to choose an epidural made a lot of sense at that time. I mean, and because I was tired, I was hungry, like all these things, I just needed to rest. Mm-hmm. It was an excellent decision. And for a while after that birth, I really beat myself up about it, because I was like, I wasn't strong enough to make it. Well, I would have had to have made it another 17 hours. And it meant that I had the strength to push. And, what we know about first babies is that pushing is a little bit longer. And you really do need your strength to do it. And I got the rest that I needed. I was able to, push out a baby. Yeah. And gosh, for so long, I really beat myself up about that. And I've certainly resolved myself to that decision, because it really was the right decision. We're recording this today, actually on World Down Syndrome Day. So for those who are concerned, who are watching today, because we did have a child with a disability for a home birth, we were very quickly able to get into the medical system and get the therapies and the services that she needed, and to make sure that she was healthy. Heart problems are common, and she had an ultrasound of her heart, and so we were and of course we also got an official genetic diagnosis as well, since she was born at home. A lot of folks get a prenatal diagnosis through blood work, and we had declined those kinds of tests, which is why we did not have a prenatal diagnosis. And it's not unheard of. Even today, a lot of people still decline those tests, and if it doesn't show up on an ultrasound, then it will go undiagnosed. I would never advise anyone to have another baby just so that they can reconcile their traumatic birth experience. But if that is a decision you make, and that happens to happen to you, it does help you. It is helpful. It did help me reconcile what had happened with the second, and it took me a long time to get over that second birth experience. I really didn't think I was going to have another baby. Had people that I could talk to, I had support people that I had who'd help me process some of that experience. And, definitely I advocate for therapy for folks who've had traumatic birth experiences, even if you just go a couple of times, just to kind of get it out, talk about it with someone who wasn't there, talk to someone who a counselor who can hold that space with you, because it's very important to process these experiences.
Babies don't really care about where they're born. They'll come whenever and however they want to, and we really learn that and see that in Amelia's third birth story. Thank you for watching, subscribe if you'd like, and I'll see you next time.